Shalom, family. Thank you so much for joining us here at Remnant House, the home of the strong and the very courageous. And we're always thankful when you join us for the weekly news update. It is our labor of love that we do each and every week. So thank you to those of you that are out there. Somebody give me a 5x5. Let me know that you can hear me okay. We never know. Sometimes, we have technical challenges. So stay with us. We hope we will be able to put this completely through. And those of you out here in the Southwest, well, we've got a hot scorcher today. Woo! It's a warm one here in Arizona today. I think we actually breached triple digits. It was a warm one, but we're so happy to be here and certainly happy to get together with all of you. So thank you again for joining us. And for those of you joining us for the first time, perhaps you're swinging by now. We are getting a few new people signing up to the channel. So thank you for subscribing and sharing the link and encouraging others. And whether you're watching while we do the broadcast or come along afterward, we're always grateful you stop by. And remnantwatch.com is our labor of love. And this is where, of course, you'll find all the stories that we are covering and cover each week. And this handy banner right here at the top will always bring you to the latest broadcast. If we're live, you can run on into remnantwatch.com, hit that button, and fly right to the right link every time. So that's why we do that. And of course, we do have these handy guides for survival, and these are important, folks. Since we put them up, we have not found a reason to take them down. So we continue to provide that free of charge. We do have the search bar for those of you that may be tracking stories and taking a look at trends. And that's something that I do. I don't know, maybe you're like me. Maybe you're one of those people that want to know, hey, how many times has it been what was it? Once in 100 years flood, right? And then we had like 5 of them in 3 months or something like that. So, or similar stories where it was like once in 1,000 years. And it's like, wait a minute, how many once in 1,000 years are we going to have, right? And so we started to do that tracking, and we put that search bar there so we could keep an eye, because this site only allows us to aggregate so many stories on the front page, but the rest of the stories are still there. They're just underneath. So you have to use the search to find them. And on that note, let's get into the news. On tonight's top story is a bit ominous, because Russia, as many of you who have been following the conflict in the East, and Russia, of course, remains in this conflict with Ukraine, and has been suffering some serious setbacks as Ukraine has been hitting their supply lines. And so this has gotten interesting. And so now Russia's really feeling it. And according to this report, they may abandon the rules of war, says Putin's deputy Medvedev, who signals that Russia may abandon the war rules after Ukraine's latest strike. So Ukraine has really hit them hard in various places. Medvedev said Russia should no longer follow laws of war after a Ukrainian drone strike hit a key Moscow oil refinery. And so what's going on is they're attacking their resupply and attacking their ability to take advantage of an up oil market. Now, this might sound like a good idea for them fighting a war, but remember that the civilians and the infrastructure that is dependent on this is also impacted. And so just as it would be here, right? So if we blew up refineries in your country, I promise you, you would feel it. So this is starting to ripple across, of course, Russia, and escalating strikes. Recent days saw massive Russian missile and drone barrages on Ukrainian cities, killing civilians and damaging key infrastructure. So they're taking up the fight a notch. I said several times over the last several years that I was not expecting them to use nuclear weapons, because the prevailing winds on Earth go east to west. I'm sorry, from west to east, rather. And so if they bomb Ukraine with nuclear weapons, where's that fallout going to go? Right back over Russia. So I've wondered if they would even use nuclear weapons. However, if they've reached a place where they're becoming more desperate, well, desperate times call for desperate measures, right? And so this is what we're seeing now. Now, of course, we saw some movement in the Middle East, and there's a good reason why. So before we get into some of that hullabaloo, which somebody tell me if we can make heads or tails of any of the nonsense that we're seeing there. But before we go there, understand the reason why we're seeing the hullabaloo, okay? Because if you don't know why, then you may not know why this is all going on right now and where the pressure is coming from, which is causing some people to crack, right, and act erratically. Well, here's why. Because the world has about 4 weeks of oil left before we're going to have major problems in the economies of the world. And so this is a major issue that is pressing heavily upon those who are aware. All right. So U.S. President Donald Trump has acknowledged that global oil reserves were on the verge of exhaustion, a development that pressured Washington to accept Iran's terms for a framework agreement to end the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And so, of course, now with this attack on Russian oil production, that didn't help. Okay, that did not help. So speaking at the G7 summit in France on Wednesday, Trump warned that without the deal with Iran, the world would have faced bedlam as oil reserves were set to run out in approximately 4 weeks. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you're seeing reticence in the form in the EU and around the world. They're not exactly supporting the United States. They're not exactly even trying to broker peace deals. It's not even happening. So this is really bizarre that we're seeing nations that are so bent on being anti-Donald Trump that they're actually shooting themselves in the foot a bit. So this ought to get very interesting. I doubt very seriously they will repair this in time. So all of us need to prepare for and anticipate disruptions of supply like they had in the 1970s. Now, it may not happen, and let's hope it doesn't, but there may be. And so if we plan for it, well, better to be prepared and not need it than need it and not have it, right? So it's wise to be aware that we may be looking, especially towards the fall, at gasoline shortages. Travel may become a big, big challenge. And so that's just something to be aware of, folks, because this is real. And unfortunately, even if they were, as I've been saying, if they were to resolve this matter today and all parties agreed, it still takes a certain amount of time for tankers to load up there, and that's provided all the equipment still works, load up there and deliver their oil to their stations. And again, that's assuming there's no issues, no weather problems, all kinds of other things. So this is a very dangerous situation. But doesn't it make you wonder, wait a minute, because isn't the United States an oil producing nation? Doesn't Venezuela still have oil that it can produce to add to oil reserves? So I'm wondering why we're in the situation we're in. Seems like massive mismanagement to me. But what do I know? I'm just a guy in the desert. So what do I know, right? I'm just a voice in the wilderness crying, prepare ye the way of Yahuwah. But nevertheless, it's certainly something for us to understand and pay attention to. And so these things are continuing to go on. There's any discussions of peace deals. I don't understand why they're even, I don't know. They're definitely not talking to each other because Israel's just launching fresh strikes on Lebanon. And despite Trump's criticism, and Trump went off on him. So, I mean, he went straight off on him and they didn't care. They carried out new strikes in southern Lebanon. State media said, despite renewed criticism from U.S. President Donald Trump of Israel's actions in the country, and Israel drone strikes injured several people in Mansouri and Aziyeh in Wednesday, and while jets attacked Native al-Faqwan and Lebanonian cities, of course. And so basically, you're still continuing to see conflict in this region, despite some discussions of a peace deal. So what is this? It's all theatrics, folks. There's no real peace agreement that is going to be forthcoming. And the Israeli people feel very betrayed, especially by, Donald Trump is now scolding them after they've entered into this conflict. And so there's a lot of mixed feelings going on here in this entire region. And as it looks to me, as just one observer, it looks to me like the die is now cast and Israel is struggling for its very existence. And so we are seeing a massive change in this theater of the world. And I don't see any players that are going to come into that region that are going to make any significant change. So with the United States' essential exit from the Middle East, which it looks like it's essentially doing, then essentially you're going to see Turkey and other countries step into some of these power vacuums. That's going to get messy. That's not as clean. That's going to get messy. I mean, it's already messy, right? It's already a huge mess. This is going to get worse before it gets better. So especially with Israel's attitude, the attitude that Israel has maintained is not one that is conducive to peace. So they have an axe to grind. They have a agenda they are following out. And whether you agree with it or not, as some do and some don't, makes no difference. We just need to be aware of what this implies. And as far as what we know scripturally, the scripture talks about Israel being isolated. So are we seeing a setup of the exact same scenario that reminds us or is reminiscent to what was prophesied in the scripture? I believe so. I believe we're seeing a lot of orchestration and manipulation of events. So be careful not to read too much into it, but understand where we are. And so they continue to carry out strikes. Lebanon is just north of the Golan Heights, right? So literally right over that northern border. And if you remember, those of you that have been following along for some time, we talked about this, how they were attacking Gaza and going full on in Gaza and then starting conflict in the northern border. And we talked about it then, like, why are you doing this? Why would you start conflict in your northern border when you already have a conflict with Gaza? Well, they didn't expect much trouble with Gaza, and they were planning already on attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon. And so that's now what they've done. Well, if you read the memorandum of understanding signed by the president and by the Iranians, it includes Lebanon. So I don't know how the Israelis can be a partner to peace when they're bombing one of the parts that are in the memorandum. So this makes no sense. And now we're seeing that, of course, the technology that is being brought to bear is significant. We just learned that Grok's AI, Musk Grok, fired 2,000 missiles at Iran. That's what the Pentagon used anyway. They used Grok AI to do that. So if you remember recently, they kicked out Anthropic, which misanthropic is a good name for it. I think that's what Elon called it. And they're pretty nefarious as far as I'm concerned. But what do I know? I just spent thousands of hours in there. But I believe this is also very dangerous because now you've got an AI, watch this now, guys, in charge of what? You see how they slip this stuff into headlines and you barely notice? And you didn't really think much about it? 2,000 missiles using AI. Donald Trump's administration turned to Elon Musk's Grok chatbot. Notice they call it a chatbot. Far more than that, folks. I'm telling you right now. To launch thousands of missiles on Iran, according to a top defense official. In a sworn statement defending the trillionaire from a lawsuit alleging that XAI data centers are illegally polluting Black communities, the Pentagon's artificial intelligence chief said the chatbot's continued operation is a matter of paramount national security. So, are we going to see protection of certain technology? I believe so. And there's a lot of people going, yeah, sure. What could go wrong, right? This is a great idea. We have a sovereignty filter is one of our last patent we filed, and that patent filters the output of LLM. So just consider that. It is a post LLM filter. Why would we need that? And what are they drinking? If there's a filter on ours, what are they drinking? Tap water. This is going to get more and more interesting as we go. Just saying. So I think that this is why you're going to see, and we are going to see the pushback that we're seeing today, because again, they rolled out tech without responsibility. They rolled it out and embarrassed themselves by making some very dumb mistakes for greed of gain. Greed of gain is a bad motive. Amen. Can we all agree on that? The greed of gain is a bad motive. Godliness with contentment is great gain. Get to godliness with contentment, and you'll get great gain. Amen. Okay, well, we'll see if you listen. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. The Straits of Hormuz, they keep talking about this like it's a gate. It's not quite so easy. The Strait of Hormuz's reopening may take weeks to ease shipping backlog and oil pressure. Remember, there are boats already stuck there, so they have to get those out before they can get in new ones. So they've got a logjam here. This is not an easy problem to solve. The traffic through the Straits of Hormuz is likely to take weeks to normalize after the deal to reopen it, and that's if they quit shooting. Okay? And the most likely scenario is a phased restart. And industry experts expect oil tankers and LNG carriers to receive priority access due to their importance of global markets. But it won't matter if they don't stop shooting. So we have to pray for peace, folks, and cooler heads to prevail so they don't pound on tables and threaten one another. Because now we're getting to the point where your little spat is now spilling over to real people's lives, and we're really tired of having that happen. So the world is awakening and saying, we're really getting tired of this, and this is a good thing. How many believe, and I'd love to see your comments on here, that it's time for us to all collectively decide together that war is a really stupid idea. It doesn't really resolve anything, and ultimately you end up where? Back at the table, where they were before they started the war. Can you guys remember that? They were already at a table. And then the United States walked out all stompy and started shooting. Now they want to get back to the table. Okay? So you see the manipulation here. You see the games that are being played. It's a bunch of nonsense. It looks like high school to me. How many agree? How many are thinking, man, this looks like high school? You guys grow up, please. All right. Now we have, thankfully, a deal got signed on the 18th. Trump personally signed the Iran deal at Versailles in a major diplomatic breakthrough. Why is this important? Well, this is where they signed World War II agreements here. So this is a major breakthrough, but is it a good one? We don't know. The Trump administration revealed a full memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran and Wednesday. The deal refutes reports that the U.S. will be offering Iran $300 billion, making clear the U.S. would instead permit outside investment into Iran if it adhered to the memorandum of understanding. And so it continues to be an evolving document, by the way, folks. This is a memorandum of understanding. This isn't even an agreement. And so this is far from over. And with the testiness of the parties at play, it is likely that we are going to see further disruption, especially when you consider that both parties or both sides are quite hostile toward the other's point of view. One is trying to sort of dominate the other, like some dog in a backyard, and the other is simply trying to survive, it looks to me. So this is a stalemate at best. This is the champ thought he'd go in and knock him out in one round, and here we are in round 12. So this is why, war is a bad idea. It may expose more than it helps. And unfortunately here in this situation, we're seeing much more than we wanted to see. How many are now getting a new opinion of Israel through this process? Now, again, this is not Yasharel. This is Israel, all right? Which I'm not going to go into the difference. If you don't know that, ask somebody. Ask somebody over here because they'll tell you, okay? But just so we understand, they are continuing to undermine this in every way. U.S. Intel reportedly says that Netanyahu's actions in Lebanon are expected to undermine the Iran deal. So as long as there's continued attacks on Lebanon, which is in the first paragraph of this MOU, then I don't see how this thing's going to hold. The U.S. intelligence analysis has warned the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to take actions that will undermine the Trump administration's push for a lasting peace with Iran, according to the Washington Post. And citing current and former U.S. officials, the report says U.S. intelligence agencies assess that Israel seems determined to continue fighting against Hezbollah in Lebanon, where the deal signed this between Iran and administration calls for a cessation of military operations. The analysis reportedly states that ahead of Knesset elections in the fall, Netanyahu's political fate depends on him maintaining Israeli forces in southern Lebanon, and that he wants to ramp up Israeli attacks on Iran-backed Hezbollah. So his base is the Warhawks. That's Netanyahu's base. And the only way that he can keep power as a prime minister is to continue to feed into that base. That's quite hostile toward its neighbors. So again, what does that portend? Well, that tells this one person, I don't know about the rest of you, that we should expect further conflict and that discussions of peace are tactics at this point. And I think that we're going to continue to see that until the Israeli regime stops attacking. I don't think a peace deal can be made, and I'd love your thoughts, but I just don't think it can be made as long as you've got a rogue partner that just goes off half-cocked whenever it feels like. Now, how do you make a deal when you got, you're trying to negotiate and you got, Wild Bill over here, going off, shooting up the OK Corral whenever he feels like it? That's not conducive to a lasting peace. So until that status quo changes and we stop seeing hot-headedness in the press, some of this nonsense I don't even know how to comment on. I mean, insulting the his Italian prime minister, insulting the leaders of our countries around the world. Somebody explain to me how this makes any kind of diplomatic sense, how it has any value or improves the lives of Americans or people in general anywhere. And I just don't think it does. I think that we have been completely set up with a bunch of nonsense, and we're watching a devolution of sorts. So right now, according to CNBC, and this is coming in as of today, so this is the latest as of today, the shipping is stalls in the Straits of Hormuz after Iran declares key waterway closed again. So after all of that, a whole week of, yeah, we got a peace deal. We're signing a peace deal. I'm going to Versailles to sign the peace deal. We signed the peace deal. The peace deal is signed, and the peace deal is dead. Shipping stalled through the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz over the weekend, according to maritime intelligence company Windward. The data shows that a recovery in oil tanker traffic through the world's most important choke point just last week appears to have already hit a snag. Iran on Shabbat Saturday said that it had shut the strait, citing the ceasefire violations after Israel continued deadly strikes in southern Lebanon. So is there any question what is now causing the worldwide issues? So what's going on here, guys? So this is part of, again, the theatrics, and also it overlays with the Bible prophecy, because Israel's being isolated. And so now shipping through the Straits of Hormuz stalled over the weekend. Who's going to get the blame? Well, the U.S. is stepping out of the blame now, little by little, slowly, not very well, but they're trying. And so what's going on here, in my analysis, is that the blame is going to go all the way to Israel completely. So right now, the United States bears some of that blame, a lot of that blame, obviously. But as it continues to rebuke Israel and try to make a deal with Iran, right? And Israel keeps frustrating that, what's starting to happen here? Well, the United States and Iran might start to come closer together, and they might create distance between the United States and Israel. And some may say, oh, that will never happen. I would not bet on it. The amount of pushback going on right now in the United States that I'm observing in some of the articles that I'm reading and some of the things that I'm seeing is unprecedented. I've never seen this kind of open public pushback against the Israeli lobby, against Israel directly, against their influence. I've never seen it. So this is a first for me. Is anybody else? I see a devolution here that is, I believe, part of the plan. And this is taking us to a not great place. I do believe that they had a grander plan that is being shut down, but it doesn't change the things that they set in motion and that were automated. So we're still going to see the nihilists, if you will, and we're still going to see the devolution of society. And yes, we have not seen it all yet. So those of you that thought, wait, we got more? There's more? I thought we already did that. Yeah, they like to repeat these things. So Iran did walk out of the peace talks after Trump's outburst. And again, this is not helping. So U.S. president threatens to restart his bombing campaign in an expletive-laden phone call and posts on social media. So he basically came unhinged, and the Iranians walked out, said, no, we're not going to sit here and let you barrage us. Now, you don't walk out of peace deals you need. So they're walking out because they don't feel threatened. Now, that's crazy because they've certainly taken a lot of damage. But for reasons that you'd have to ask them, they are just going to keep walking with confidence and bravado and just not going to give him his win. So this is part of the challenge here. He wants them to admit, he wants them to cry uncle, and they just won't do it. So, yeah, buckle up, Buttercup. Stand by. Here we go. We're going to continue to see this. Now, what we're also seeing at the same time, and this is interesting because this is, again, isolating Israel. What are we seeing publicly? Publicly, very unusual. And look where it's being published. So this didn't get published in a lefty newspaper, so to speak. This got published in the Times of Israel. And it says Trump urged Netanyahu to stop blowing up buildings, quote unquote, as regular phone calls turn hostile, according to this report. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing U.S. president is now trying to make a deal outside of Israel. Didn't even include Israel in the discussions. Wait a second. Isn't this the country that you went to war with as a partner? And now you've gotten to the point where you cannot even include them in the discussions to end the war. What does that tell you? That tells you that they figured out that Israel was their problem, that they feel suckered or dragged in to something that they now realize they didn't want to be in. That's the reading I get as I read this. And so according to the report, the two leaders' frequent phone calls are more hostile than they used to be. Yeah, because the United States is figuring out that it didn't want to be in this mess. And Trump has expressed frustration to his advisors that Netanyahu wants to bomb everyone, according to a person who heard the remarks, while a senior official in the administration says the president has grown tired of the premier's constant requests for military action. And basically, he always wants to blow something up. And this is something we've been talking about. We said, what diplomacy comes with a bomb? How do you make the world a better place by bombing things? So he's asking a question, right, that we've asked on this broadcast, that you and I have all wondered, like, how's this helping? And now it's going out in the news. This is a new thing. It's a new era. This never got discussed. Never in the history of my life do I remember news headlines questioning things like this in this way, especially with Israel. So now what we see is he's scolding. He's no longer, and this is not on the phone. This is now in public. Again, so this is repeated stories, guys. Numerous things that are being put in the public that appear to be a distancing that is now going on between Washington and Tel Aviv. And so Trump scolds Netanyahu at G7 summit. And he says, I feel bad for Lebanon. That's why he's saying, hey, stop this. President Trump on Wednesday aired his frustration with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on the sidelines of Group 7 summit in France, telling the Israeli leader to hold back attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon amid high-stakes negotiation with Iran. Trump speaks at it doesn't matter if he holds up now, they get the deal done. It doesn't matter if he goes around the next day and blows something up. And he gets a little excited. He's not just a little excited. He's blowing stuff up. He's killing people. That's not just a little excited. So we've got a problem here. And you've got a partner that really isn't a partner in the goal. They're a partner in, they use the United States to get it started, but they hate Iran. And they just want to destroy Iran. They just do. And so their hatred is beyond words, and they want them gone. Well, Iran feels the same way. So we started a fight between two backyard bullies that doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. All right. I really think this is some very dangerous stuff. And now we're seeing the effect in other places. And again, folks, while we're paying attention to this, we're not paying attention to other things that are happening in our world. And this is the nihilists, if you will. This is the other part of this that we knew would come, where disaster would come to societies. and they would just tear societies to pieces. Well, take a look at Europe, and what you're going to see is the evidence of just that. You're seeing absolutely that some serious harm has been done. Elon Musk is calling for Nuremberg-style trials after the UK rape gang inquiry released. And there's up to 250,000 young British girls. So this is not the Swedish girls. This is the British girls. So the Swedish can produce their own report. So can the Norwegians. So can the Germans, right? So, but this is just UK. 250,000 young British girls raped. Imam says 95% of suspects were Muslim men. These migrants have colonized large parts of our country and live their lives how they choose to do so because our authorities are too frightened of being called a racist to challenge them. Have you seen this? So this is one of the common tactics that are utilized as this invasive species, if you will, this invasive system comes in. And this is not everybody. This is a certain group. So there are very, very wonderful Arab people, wonderful Muslim people that I've met that aren't this way. So it's not everybody. Just like any group, there are wicked within them. And so after Restore Britain leader Rupert Lowe released a gang rape inquiry report, which documented the systematic rape and often torture of up to 250,000 young British girls at the hands of predominantly Muslim rape gangs, SpaceX and Tesla founder Elon Musk agreed with calls for Nuremberg-style trials for the perpetrators and those who enabled the heinous attack. So there's those that are now saying it's one thing that we had some criminal elements. We can prosecute criminal elements, but who allowed this? Who made it possible for these rapes to occur? Who's facilitating this, either by looking the other way in terms of immigration policy or allowing in people who are a danger to society? So again, you're going to see continued pushback on policies that were implemented in the last 10 years that are now getting their review. On the other side of this war will continue because there are those who believe in a strong central government, in a new world order, if you will, and that which threatens that is parental isolation or sovereignty. Your sovereignty as a parent, as an adult, is an enemy to their plans. Okay, and so you see this in the way in which they conduct themselves. This was a horrible story. I feel bad even having to share it, but there were parents who were sentenced to 50 days in prison for homeschooling their children. Daughters are accomplished pianists who speak multiple languages but aren't fans of hip hop, which upset the judge. And that's it. The couple in Brazil, and we have family and friends in Brazil. Okay, a couple in Brazil have become the first parents in the country to be criminally convicted for homeschooling their children and sentenced to 50 days in prison after a judge ruled their curriculum failed to include state-approved content on gender, sexuality, and cultural diversity. Am I reading this right? What? Yeah. Yes, we are reading this correctly. The sentencing judge found that the home education program for their daughters, age 15 and 11, didn't include instruction on gender and sex education or tolerance and diversity. The court also cited the girls' musical taste as evidence of cultural neglect. Wow. Because neither daughter expressed a liking for trap, an American hip-hop subgenre popular in Brazil. Are you joking me? So you don't like the kind of music we like, we're going to put your parents in prison. I did not just read that. Wow. Wow. We have reached a new place of crazy. And unfortunately, I don't think that's going anywhere. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going anywhere. Now they want your digital life all over the place. And how many know that digital security, digital privacy is going to become important? They're hacking the FBI director, right? Remember, guys, you saw the story? If you run a search on Remnant Watch, you'll find they hacked the FBI. They can't secure it. We have the only unbreakable lock on earth. We patented it. We're waiting for the final patent, but we can still license it to companies who need a secure locking mechanism. And we'll be talking more about that in the days to come. But here's the point. They don't have one. They need it badly because their stuff is easily broken into. I read that it was only a matter of hours for the latest, highest level of artificial intelligence to crack into government systems. Government systems cracked right in. Government systems cracked right in. So AI is too advanced for your only difficulty locks. Those are not difficult anymore. You need impossible, and there's only one that does that. So is this a serious problem? Yes, folks. It's extremely serious. It's one thing for us to laugh about somebody's email getting cracked into, or even, companies getting their data hacked. But when essentially everything is open game and there is no security because the AIs are getting too powerful, this is no longer funny, and there are serious repercussions. Lives will be lost. Harm will happen. Massive loss of monetary value, asset value, all kinds of mayhem can be wrought across society if it were coordinated. And so this is why it is incredibly important that we have excellent tools to secure data. There's no way around it, folks. And that's why it's important that there be remedies. So again, for those of you that are new and don't know much about New Kingdom, we have patented answers for this very thing. And ImageLock DX is the only patented lock that could prevent these hacks. It's the only one that would. They couldn't hack them. Straight up couldn't. And so you would instantly get security. Now, how many think that's an important innovation in today's society? How many think that that's an important thing for governments and for businesses and for militaries and so forth to utilize? So we do anticipate that is going to be huge, unless somebody else has another answer that can do the same. And what's happening as a result of this is massive pushback. And who could see this coming? I didn't. What do you know? Americans have turned against AI in incredible numbers, right? Not that many people are thinking it's a good thing, and not that anyone in power is going to care. So look at this, guys. This is a very important notice that this is Futurism article, and they're basically telling you, yeah, we know that you guys don't like it, and they're basically saying, so what? Okay, but there's even more evidence that Americans are coming to an overwhelming loathe AI, despite or perhaps because they're using chatbots more than ever. And I told you these things unfiltered are not good. In a sweeping new poll conducted by Pew Research, only 16% of respondents said they believe AI will have a positive impact on society, a number as dismal as the perception of the tech. And so meanwhile, 49% of adults say they use chatbot like ChatGPT, which is literally the worst. I won't even touch that, which remains the most popular by a considerable margin. Don't know why. With a quarter saying they use the tools daily. And again, there's slow moving elements to that I don't think people notice. I know they don't. And the proportion is considerably higher than the 33% of American adults who say that they use AI chatbots in 2024. In other words, the tech widespread adoption isn't helping its perception. A full 40% of respondents said they anticipate AI will have a negative impact on society, and 31% said it will impact them personally in a negative way too. Now, I believe a lot of that is fear-mongering, but it doesn't matter because that has a way of self-fulfilling. So the tech isn't the problem. It's the fact that people are ignorant of how to utilize it and how it's going to impact their lives. And it will impact their lives, just as scanning checkouts. Remember those when they came in? You guys remember that? How many remember that? When those came in, did they change the grocery ecosystem? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it got to where people began to only use the lines where there were no checkout scanners and only people. And some still do to this day. So you'll go to Walmart, there'll be one or two checkouts and the rest are automated. It used to be all of them were people, right? So what happened there? Technology came in and changed the ecosystem. It happens all the time, folks. So it's nothing new. It happened to, we used to get gas pumped and we pumped our own gas. So, I mean, evolution of technology happens. Where the challenge comes in is that people have to be taught how this technology impacts their lives, so how they can utilize it. And unfortunately, that's not what's happening. And so as a result, we're seeing um, some bad side effects that I believe are going to continue to plague the country until we retrain, until people stop looking for grocery bagger jobs and start looking for something else. As long as they're continuing on analog when the world's moving digital, they're going to stay unemployed. So this is where shifting is very important. Speaking of shifting, we're going to talk about health here for just a second. Did you know there's a terrifying stomach cancer explosion sweeping the U.S.? And again, folks, we always encourage everybody to parasite cleanse and detox, okay? No matter what any doctor tells you, you parasite cleanse and you detox. Regardless of what else they tell you, you definitely do that. And after fitness influencers shocked that, experts will reveal subtle early signs that are too often ignored and lifestyle tweaks that can prevent it. And so people are suddenly shocked because a fitness person was hurt by it. But I want to tell you that cancer has not been abated because we continue to address the wrong issues. So again, take my advice. It'll probably be very, very good for you, right? You can do what you want, but it's my advice. Just my advice. But you want to do what you want. I'm not a medical professional. It's just my opinion. I should say my opinion, right? And do what you want with it. That's what I would do. Amen. Switching over to LA. This is really interesting. How many have ever heard of a warehouse fire that they couldn't put out in a day? The LA firefighters are battling a warehouse blaze, and why this is really bad is it's very toxic, and it almost looks like an attack on LA. It really does. California's governor has declared a state of emergency for the city of Los Angeles as firefighters are struggling to contain a stubborn warehouse blaze. Listen to this, guys. That has raged for days and blanketed parts of the city in smoke. Gavin Newsom announced that he was directing state agencies to provide additional assistance and resources to help battle the fire. You can't put out a fire in a warehouse. You got no chance of putting it out in the wild, right? So what's going on here? We're coordinating closely with our local partners, deploying specialized expertise and pre-positioning critical supplies so communities have the support they need both now and throughout recovery. I don't know, something very fishy about this story. Something about it doesn't ring very well to me. It makes me concerned that something else is going on here. Again, it should not take that long to contain a warehouse fire. By definition, it's already contained inside the warehouse. So this really, really is concerning as we go forward. And I just hope that we're going to see that resolved because, again, a lot of people are going to be impacted by that. I don't know if you knew this, but women are turning to dark solutions now for pregnancy. Now, isn't this interesting? Because Isaiah 4:1 talks about 7 women grabbing the hem of a Hebrew. And this is foretelling, right? Well, I found this story fascinating, that women are now starting to turn to something called dark Tinder. I don't know what dark Tinder is. I guess it's on the dark web. Makes sense. For sperm apps to swipe their way to motherhood. Are we joking right here? No. Apparently, those of you that have uncontaminated sperm are of high value. Just thought you should know that for future reference, I guess. Some women are so desperate to become parents, they're heading to dark corners of the web to find sperm to get pregnant. Can you believe this? Yes, this is really what's happening. Women are progressively turning to unregulated Tinder for sperm apps to find their perfect donor match, and reportedly using this as a desperate bid to become moms. And I'm stunned at this. I'm literally sitting here going, what? So, how many of you are like me going, huh? Yeah. But here's the thing. And since they gave everybody the funny juice, reproduction's a challenge. I was listening to an interview with a guy who's 30 years old, and he says, I don't know anyone in my age bracket that has children. And he was just commenting. Now, I don't know where he was in one of the cities in the Americas, but he was commenting that those in his age bracket aren't walking around with children like like you would expect at that age bracket. And so what is happening here, right? And so we all suspected some things, but is this now the natural result? Is this now the new trend? Oh my goodness, they have an app? An app? How does one get on such an app? We've reached some serious crazy, folks. We've reached into the loony bin and are grabbing fistfuls of nuts. Speaking of fistfuls of nuts, did you know that Trump went to the G7? He sits there amongst all these guys and he says, I'm the boss. The guy literally is losing it. Okay, he sits there and he says, I'm the boss to his G7 counterparts. Unbelievable. The G7 summit of world powers in France is being chaired by President Emmanuel Macron as host. But on Wednesday, his guest, so he's just a guest for this, U.S. President Donald Trump left no doubt over who he believed was in charge. I'm the boss, Trump said as he strode in the morning session of the last day of the 3-day G7 summit with the other leaders already in their seats. Walking in late amid laughter, Macron appeared to take the comment with good humor. How are you? French president asked. Good, thank you. He's the boss, you see. Right? You're fired. You're all fired. And he's making jokes, but is he? Or is this part of the thinking process that continues to drag us toward conflict, that has brought the world toward an energy crisis, has got people seriously concerned about how they're going to feed their families, and they're making jokes. There's people that are seriously can't figure out how to navigate this new incoming digital economy, and they're laughing. There are people whose families or lives are literally at stake. They may lose their homes. They may lose their livelihood. And this is a big joke. So we've got to really think long and hard about how we, as the remnant, respond to some of these things. Because even if they're joking, we have to provide serious remedies, folks. So speaking of remedies, there are those that are looking for remedies to workers because, again, part of the fruit of this new doctrine that they started to pour out starting in the 70s and 80s has been a decrease in worker quality and a decrease in worker participation, period. So we're seeing the results of their bad planning and bad systems for society management. And so now look at the result. A new store in Hong Kong has no human employees. They're done. They got more people than any other country, and they're done. And they're like, nope, no human employees, just a single humanoid robot that now takes care of the customers. Okay? And so this is now a new one is popping up in Hong Kong. And, of course, they're just doing a test because as soon as they prove it can be done, and the way that they prove it, folks, so we're running out of time, so I'll go quickly here. The way they prove it is they figure out what mistakes it makes and fix them. So they put it in a beta test like this. This is what that's called. They put it in a real-world situation. It starts making shakes and whatever, and it counts all its mistakes, fixes those, tests it again. When it stops making those mistakes, that's it. They start promoting that to everyone across the world. You now can get rid of employees. You can buy robots instead. If you think AI brought that in, you were wrong. That was already in play. AI just essentially assisted in the communication part of it because it's a large language model, but the robotics and the attempt to literally remove humans from the workplace was already in place regardless of AI. Well, in conjunction with AI, I should say. So this was an unstoppable train, folks. This was where we were always headed. Now, is it a bad thing? I think that people need to change their perspective because you can live an amazing life if you utilize these things instead of them utilizing you. Now, if you're the slave, things won't go well. Just saying. All right. Now, switching gears, we're running out of time, so I want to kind of lighten this up. This doesn't really lighten it up, but at least it takes us out of that conversation. And I don't know what to tell you about this, folks. This definitely reflects on a changing society. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but we grew up in an America where, as a young person, if you needed a little extra money, we encouraged you to have some ingenuity. When I was a young person, I would sit outside of Shopwell. They don't even have those anymore. That's how long. I dated myself. I used to sit outside them, well-dressed, clean, comb my hair, sit there, and every woman that came out with a few bags, I would say, would you like some help with your bags, ma'am? And carry their bags to their truck or car and get a quarter or whatever. And I'd walk away with a pocket full of change by a few hours, right? So this is a normal America. You're a young person, you find ways to help people, and you can make a little pocket change. You can do good, right? So one of those ways that we did that as young people, now I didn't do this myself, but many of you know people that did this, and that was do a lemonade stand, right? Make some lemonade for people on a hot day, sell some lemonade, raise a little money. What's wrong with that? It's a cute thing, right? Isn't that adorable? Well, apparently somebody in Boston didn't think so. And so, unbelievably, this is America now. It's the new America. Ready? A Boston teen, 14, is charged after allegedly robbing a kid's lemonade stand at gunpoint. Gunpoint? A lemonade stand? What has happened to our country? Okay? Running a lemonade stand in the summer is a rite of passage for kids across America. This is supposed to be normal. A tradition dating back to the early 20th centuries that helps instill early lessons about responsibility and hard work. And that's why the armed robbery of a child's lemonade stand in South Boston on June 10th left locals in shock, while eventually landing one teen in custody. So somebody thought it would be cute to just rob the kids who were, making lemonade. What's wrong with our country, man? How many know we need to show that story to our little ones and say, don't you ever participate in something like that. Don't you ever do that. Don't you bully nobody. We need to pull them aside and tell them about that, because that is horrible. There's somebody doing a lemonade stand. Somebody decide to rob them. And another kid on top of that, a 14-year-old. Horrible. Okay? That's a parenting failure. And hopefully those parents of those children will now be on top of that, right? But it's a sad story. And I think it's a reflection of a society, well, that frankly has lost its way. And we're going to continue to see things like that. Unfortunately, we did have a sad story again this week where another shooting, we had actually several shootings, but this was really sad. Philly police arrested a suspect in a hospital shooting that killed one and injured another. So this was really sad because, in a hospital, police in Philadelphia have captured a man wanted in connection with a shooting out inside the Wilmington Hospital on Tuesday afternoon that killed one person and wounded another. Now, how many demons do you have to go to a hospital to kill people? Authorities were notified of the shooting around 3:30 p.m., so broad daylight, middle of the day, said Police Chief Wilfredo Campos. When officers arrived, they found 2 gunshot victims. Their identities had not been released to the public. And unfortunately, one of them expired. And so our society is devolving, and unfortunately, not in a good way. So this is why it is important for us more than ever to let our light so shine before men, that they would see good works. And when they see good works, they learn that good works. Amen. And so how many know that we have to push back? Otherwise, the darkness will envelop our nation and envelop the future of our children and grandchildren. Well, I, for one, do not plan to sit idly by and let that happen. I love my grandchildren, and I believe many of you do as well. And so this is why we must continue to make a clarion call for the next generation to ensure that they have a hope and a future. And the way that we do that is to stand up together, united in one accord, and push back against things we know are wrong, establishing things we know are correct, reasserting our authority as the citizens of a nation, wherever you are, and then remembering that it is the better ideas that win today. It's never going to be jackboot. It's never going to be bombs. It's never going to be men in uniforms. It's always going to be innovation, ideas, brilliance. This is how we get to lead, if you will. Yahuwah gives us light to our mind and understanding, such that, like Daniel, they put you in charge. Like Joseph, they put you in charge because of your brilliance. Amen. And so my prayer for all of you is that you would let your light so shine before men that they would see your good work and give glory to your Father in heaven. Well, that's it for today. I pray this broadcast has been an encouragement to you, and I'm certainly grateful you stopped by. Thanks for joining us, and have a wonderful week. Shalom.